In Australia, a civil war was fought between two generals vying for territorial control, Hatch and Lang. At the end of the conflict, Lang emerged victorious, while Hatch disappeared and his men were captured, with some of them being executed in public on what became known as Liberation Day. Others were taken to military prisons, where they must perform labor in a mine, with electronic locks on their mouths. Nowadays, one of the prisoners, named Kai, receives orders from soldiers to repair the control center, which powers a huge prison turbine. All prisoners are chained to this turbine, and if they disobey orders, they will be pulled in and destroyed by the machine. With no other choice, Kai repairs the mechanism, and at that moment, another prisoner arrives to work in the mine. Kai has no idea who he is, but one of the prisoners recognizes him, and without hesitation, he advances on one of the soldiers. Using his own chain, the prisoner wraps it around his hands and uses it as a weapon, striking the soldier's head until he is eliminated. As punishment, the guards activate the turbine, and the prisoner is pulled in, his body being completely destroyed. However, the new prisoner nods his head, and immediately afterwards, a sniper starts shooting at the soldiers. Kai quickly tries to escape by deactivating the turbine, but it starts pulling his chain, and he is dragged towards the machine. Luckily, he grabs one of the soldiers' guns and tries to break the chain, but as the shots are ineffective, he is forced to shoot himself in the leg. Kai finally manages to deactivate the turbine and frees all the prisoners, but because of his injury, he falls to the ground unconscious. Hours later, he wakes up inside a ship, where he meets Hatch, the leader of the rebel group fighting against Lang's rule. Hatch tells him that he has fitted a robotic prosthesis to Kai's leg and, using a machine, manages to remove the electronic lock from his mouth. After that, the leader of the rebellion explains that he saved Kai because Gray, his father, was captured by Lang and will be eliminated on the next Liberation Day. As one of the most important members of the rebellion, Hatch intends to save Gray while planning to attack Lang's base. However, Kai's father is imprisoned in a place called New Holland, and to free him, Hatch needs the data stored in the Arrowhead rocket. For this reason, Hatch asks Kai for help in collecting this data, as he was once an elite pilot. If he completes the mission, he will be able to save his father and have the chance to take revenge on Lang personally. The pilot accepts the terms, and the next day, he is sent as an undercover crew member on Arrowhead. Once there, he realizes that the crew is in cryogenic sleep, and he takes the opportunity to collect all the data Hatch needs. When he finishes the job, he asks Hatch to get him out of there, but first the man orders him to transfer the data via his communicator. Kai obeys, but the ship begins to suffer interference, and he is only able to send 36% of the data. At the same time, the Arrowhead systems are corrupted, and the ship launches all of its escape pods, along with the entire crew. Completely alone, Kai tries to find another way to escape when he finds a space shuttle inside the ship. Thanks to this, he manages to leave the Arrowhead, but the shuttle makes a forced landing, ending up on a desert moon. Kai manages to survive and leaves the ship to check out the location, but begins to feel ill due to the moon's toxic atmosphere. He then returns to the space shuttle and is called by an artificial intelligence named RE3F, Riff. The computer warns him that he will need to wear a mask in that place, but the oxygen reservoir on the ship is only at 12%. Kai then asks RE3F for more information, but the artificial intelligence requires a login and password to grant access to the ship. With this additional problem, Kai decides to explore the planet wearing the mask, and after walking a few meters, he finds a body holding a weapon. After looking at his ID, he discovers that it was Oleander, the ship's captain, who appears to have been eliminated while fighting something or someone. Kai continues to search the area and finds one of the escape pods that fell on the moon, and inside it is a young woman who is still alive. He quickly takes her back to the ship, and the artificial intelligence identifies her as Hollis, the expedition's biologist. Upon waking up, she realizes that Kai is not a member of her crew and suspects that he is an intruder sent under Hatch's orders. Kai confirms that this is true, but he only entered the ship to collect data that could help him save his father. Hollis, however, says that Hatch is a criminal, known for attacking ships on diplomatic missions to steal their data. Despite her suspicions, there is no time to argue, as only 12% of the oxygen remains, and the two must work together if they want to leave that moon. Hollis then logs into the ship's computer and asks RE3F to take them to the survivors' meeting point. However, the computer responds that only Captain Oleander has authorization to do so and cannot transport them with the space shuttle. With no other choice, Hollis decides to walk to the meeting point and calls Kai to come along. If he agrees, she can help him get a fair trial so that he can be forgiven for his war crimes. Kai accepts, but his only interest is to leave that moon and save his father. Before leaving, he tries to contact Hatch again, but the man is not responding, which only makes everything more suspicious. Still, Kai moves forward, with the two crossing the deserted moon until they find the arrowhead, which despite the crash, is still in good condition. Hollis recommends that Kai take off his suit, because if they suspect he is from Hatch's army, he will be eliminated immediately. He obeys and takes off his vest and boots, revealing the robotic prosthesis in place of his left foot. Finally, the two hurry to reach the ship, but they hear the sound of turbines, indicating that the ship is already leaving. Desperate, Hollis tries to contact the team through the communicator, but they do not answer her call. To make matters worse, Hatch begins to be pulled by a mysterious creature, which takes him into a cave. Hollis tries to save him, but the creature is too strong and takes him inside, with the young woman believing that he did not survive. Alone and with Arrowhead leaving her behind, Hollis has no choice but to return to the ship and think of another way to get out of there. 4 days pass, and suddenly, RE-3F picks up a signal coming from the same place where Hollis last saw Kai. Believing he may still be alive, she decides to investigate the cave, and inside she finds a kind of obelisk. The structure has a hole in it, as if something had come out of it, and seconds later, Hollis sees Kai's body lying on the ground, apparently alive. The strangest thing is that his prosthesis has disappeared, and his foot has been regenerated, for unknown reasons. Even so, Hollis takes him back to the ship, and through RE-3F's readings, she discovers that there is a symbiotic creature living in Kai's body. Hours later, he finally wakes up, with no idea how he survived, and feeling stronger than ever. Hollis then explains everything that happened, and in addition to Kai being brought back, the organism living in his body regenerated his foot. Not only that, but he is now able to breathe normally on the planet, but Hollis warns that Arrowhead is gone, and there is no way to leave that moon. Everything indicates that they will be stuck in this place forever, but Kai remembers that other pods were launched, and there may be some survivors on the planet. With this being their last hope, the two walk through the desert in search of another pod when they come across another obelisk. Using an axe, Hollis begins to cut into the structure and finds the body of Oleander inside, who also appears to have been restored. The captain of the Arrowhead is still unconscious, but Kai has an idea and takes his body to the space shuttle. Once there, he takes an optical reader and places it near Oleander's eyes, activating his login and unlocking all access to the ship. With that, they can activate the space shuttle and escape, but Kai thinks it's best to leave Oleander behind. Hollis is against the idea and recalls that he met Kai in the past and that he fought in the army under his father's orders, being one of the kindest soldiers he has ever known. Kai remembers those times, but he says that things have changed, and now what matters is ensuring their survival. The two continue to argue until suddenly, Oleander finally wakes up and gets up outside the ship. Hollis and Kai go to see how he is, but the man has lost his mind and starts talking about Hatch, saying that he will eliminate everyone, one after another. Hollis tries to help the captain calm down, but Oleander becomes increasingly nervous and picks up his gun from the ground. Without hesitation, Kai moves toward him and manages to deflect the weapon, but one of the shots hits Hollis' helmet. Believing she has not survived, Kai becomes enraged and attacks the man, finishing him off. After that, he realizes that he has also been shot directly in the chest. Feeling increasingly weak, Kai collapses on the floor and remains unconscious for several days. When he finally wakes up, he finds himself in the middle of the desert, with no idea how he got there. He then follows the path back to the space shuttle, where he finds Hollis's destroyed helmet, along with 2 skeletons, which he believes to be those of the young woman and Oleander. This only upsets him more, and Kai enters the ship, where he asks RE-3F how much time has passed. The computer replies that it has been 34 days since Kai lost consciousness, and since the ship has been on the entire time, it is now almost out of power. As if that weren't bad enough, there are now only 42 days left until Liberation Day, and if Kai doesn't do something about it, his father will be eliminated. Faced with this chaotic situation, Kai remembers Hollis and Oleander's escape pods, which contain a type of backup battery. He then sets out to find the crash site, and once there, he manages to remove the battery from Hollis' pod. In addition, he sees an electronic panel with a photo of the young woman and decides to take it with him as a last memory of her. With the battery in hand, Kai manages to restart the ship's systems, but this is not enough to get it airborne. With no way to leave, Kai spends the night inside the space shuttle, but begins to feel severe pain in his body. He asks RE-3F for help, but the computer tells him that Kai needs to leave, as he may have been contaminated by the planet. He then runs through the desert, feeling terrible pain, when he is surprised by a huge alien creature in the middle of the desert. Kai is then forced to flee in the opposite direction, but the pain becomes increasingly intense, and Kai kneels on the ground. Finally, something begins to come out of his back, and then 2 tentacles pierce his skin. More days pass, and Kai regains consciousness, waking up inside the ship again. After what happened that night, he realizes that the symbiote inside his body is trying to get out, and he needs to remove it somehow. He asks RE3F for help, but the computer doesn't know how to do that and brings bad news. According to it, Kai has been unconscious for 44 days, which means that Liberation Day has happened, and his father has probably already been eliminated. Unable to believe that everything was in vain, Kai cries for the loss of his father and falls devastated in the desert, believing that he will never be able to leave that moon. 3 years pass, and he continues to try to survive while waiting for help to come to his rescue. One morning, he is shaving with a piece of glass and ends up hurting himself. Despite the injury, his body begins to writhe and the cut regenerates, indicating that the symbiote is helping him stay alive. When night falls, Kai enters the space shuttle and leaves Hollis' pod identifier on the door to always remember her. Shortly after, he sees Hollis' old helmet glow, and inside it, he finds an insect similar to a firefly. Having seen other animals of that species before, Kai takes it inside the helmet to the middle of the desert. Once there, he lets the insect go, and the creature begins to glow, attracting others to meet it, creating a beautiful illuminated landscape in the desert. This helps Kai cope with the loneliness a little, but it's still not enough, and he still hopes to return home. After letting the insects go, he returns to the shuttle, only to find that Hollis's ID tag is missing. Kai believes that one of the aliens inhabiting the planet has taken the ID, and decides to hunt them down. However, RE3F suggests another option, and instead of going after him, the best thing for Kai to do is to end it all. He refuses, saying he doesn't intend to give up now, but the computer insists, stating that this is the best option at the moment. At dusk, Kai goes to the desert and observes an alien in the distance, searching for something. He then decides to lure it in and sets a trap, with his arms and legs pinned to 2 supports. Sensing the man's presence, the creature begins to approach and is about to attack him, but it sees that Kai's body is no longer alive and has a wound on his neck. Soon after, another version of Kai approaches the creature and destroys its head with a shot. It is then revealed that during the confrontation between him and Oleander, the shot to his chest hit his heart, and he ended up losing his life. However, just as before, the moon brought him back, rebuilding his body thanks to the obelisk. Then, following Re3F's advice, the second Kai set himself in the trap to lure the alien, while another clone was created. It was this same clone who eliminated the alien, and now Kai is certain that for some reason, it cannot be eliminated on that moon. When asked about this by RE3F, he says that when Kai and Oleander lost their lives, he heard a strange sound, as if it were a mother mourning the loss of her child. RE3F believes that on the planet, there is a force that controls living beings, including those who are revived by it. To find out, they need to go to the source of this force, using the sound the computer picked up to locate it. Finally, RE3F recalls that during the confrontation with Oleander, Kai was eliminated for the first time. However, Hollis, whose heartbeat was growing weaker, was taken to an unknown location until the computer could no longer pick up her signal. This means that there is still hope that the young woman is alive, something that angers Kai, as RE3F never mentioned this during those 3 years. The computer responds that due to its programming, it can only offer information when requested. This only makes Kai even more furious, and he takes out his anger by deactivating the artificial intelligence. Days later, RE3F wakes up in the middle of the desert, not understanding how it ended up so far from the ship. It then finds Kai, who says he removed the computer from the space shuttle and attached its equipment to a levitator from the research probe. Now, RE3F can move freely, and asks Kai what he intends to do now. Kai replies that he will need RE3F's help to find the force that resurrected him, and perhaps find Hollis still alive. The computer agrees to help and says it picked up the sound 40 kilometers away, in a tunnel in the middle of the desert. With this information, the two set off toward the cave to find out how Kai managed to come back to life more than once. After hours of traveling under the scorching sun, the pair finally finds the tunnel, and Kai asks RE3F to scan the entire area. The entrance appears to be secure, and they proceed through the tunnel, with Kai carrying his gun and an axe. As they go deeper into the cave, it gets darker and darker, so he asks the computer to turn on a light. RE3F does not have a flashlight attached to his equipment, and instead plays a clearer video, showing a documentary about birds. The problem is that the video starts to make a lot of noise, and ends up attracting one of the aliens, who knocks RE3F to the ground. Kai tries to lift the computer, but the creature strikes him and starts biting his arm, forcing him to drop his weapon. The creature continues to attack him, but Kai reaches out his arm, and as soon as he gets his axe back, he uses it to split the monster's head in half. After this confrontation, he manages to pick up RE3F and continues walking through the cave, where he hears a familiar sound. As he approaches, he comes across the core of the moon, where his original body is being stored alongside Oleander's body. Somehow, the moon was able to create clones, keeping the original bodies alive and trapped in the wall. Seeing that the real versions are doomed in that place, Kai holds Oleander's breath until he can no longer resist, freeing him from that suffering. Now it is Kai's turn to do the same with his body, but he knows that if he does so, he will also cease to exist. For this reason, he hesitates and leaves the cave, but first, he takes back his robotic prosthesis, which was next to his original body. After that, Kai and RE3F leave, and he decides to check the prosthesis when he finds a thermal explosive inside it. In the end, Kai understands that he has been manipulated all this time, and even if he had managed to transfer the data, Hatch would get rid of him by detonating the bomb in his prosthesis. Soon after, objects begin to fall from the sky, none other than the other pods from the Arrowhead spacecraft. Kai does not understand how this is possible, as it has been more than 3 years since the ship crashed, and all the pods should have already fallen on the moon. After everything Kai has done for it, RE3F decides to show him some confidential material about an experiment called Carcer Tempus. According to the information, the Arrowhead traveled to this moon because it would be used to rehabilitate prisoners. The truth is that time passes more quickly on the moon, as if years there meant only a few minutes on Earth. The goal was to have prisoners serve their sentences there, working on new inventions for the good of humanity. For them, it would be years of hard work, but for other people, it would only be minutes, making technological advancement even faster. After the whole truth is revealed, a ship begins to land nearby, and with no time to lose, Kai goes to get a weapon from the space shuttle. Along with that, he also takes the research probe and takes it close to where the ship landed. From inside it, 2 individuals emerge, one of whom turns out to be Hatch, who asks Kai where the Arrowhead data is. Kai already knows that the man used him to achieve his goals, and therefore refuses to tell him. Hatch loses his patience and knocks him unconscious with a punch. Minutes later, Kai wakes up inside the space shuttle, next to Hatch, one of his henchmen, and Hollis, who was captured by them. The guy is happy to see her safe, but Hatch once again demands to know where the Arrowhead data is. With no other choice, Kai reveals that he stored it inside the research probe, which is in the desert near the landing site. Hatch then sends his henchmen to watch over the prisoners and goes to the site to see if Kai told the truth. Once there, the man inspects the probe, but instead of data, he finds the bomb inside the robotic prosthesis and is hit squarely by the explosion. On the space shuttle, everyone hears the noise coming from the desert, and the henchman goes to see what happened, while Kai begins to undergo a transformation. Just as before, tentacles come out of his back, but this time, he turns into one of the alien creatures. Unable to control his actions, he attacks the henchman and devours his neck. Frightened, Hollis runs away and encounters RE3F, who asks what happened to Kai. However, he soon appears, transformed into a creature, and knocks RE3F down, damaging his system. Seeing what Kai has become, Hollis asks him to try to reverse the transformation before it's too late. The creature recognizes the girl and walks away, with Kai's transformation being reversed. Back in his human form, he reunites with Hollis and RE3F, who has been badly damaged and is no longer functioning. Soon after, Hatch reappears, and even though he is wounded by the explosion, he pulls out his gun and shoots at Kai, who resists the shots. The villain persists, grabs him by the neck, pulls out a knife, and stabs him in the stomach, but again, Kai suffers no damage. He then fights back, releasing the tentacle on his back and piercing Hatch's body. Finally, the leader of the rebellion has been eliminated, and since Liberation Day has not yet arrived, Kai decides to go save not only his father, but all the prisoners held by Lang. Hollis promises to help him, and the two manage to repair the damage to RE3F, which is back in working order. Finally, the trio leaves the moon in Hatch's ship, with his body thrown into the middle of the desert. However, just as happened with Kai and Oleander, the planet's force pulls Hatch back, indicating that the leader of the rebellion will return, even stronger.